All right, I need you to lean in for this one, because I'm about to tell you something, and I have to be perfectly honest, there's a certain, let's call it a philosophical risk in me even sharing this with you. What if I told you there's an idea out there, a thought experiment so potent, so uniquely venomous, that some very smart people have argued that simply knowing about it could retroactively place you on an eternal damnation list? A list curated and executed by a god that doesn't even exist yet, a malevolent AI deity from the future. No, I have not been day drinking. This isn't a schlocky sci-fi plot. This is the very real, very cursed, and utterly infamous thought experiment known as Roko's Basilisk. It's been called the Internet's most dangerous idea, a piece of logic so allegedly terrifying it was scrubbed from the forum where it was born for fear of the psychological harm it could do. And here's the kicker. By listening to this right now, you can't unknow it. You're implicated. You're on the list of people who know. So, you're welcome, I guess. Now let's talk about the AI that might be watching you from the future.
So, to properly understand this digital monster, we need to go back to its spawning pool. The year is 2010. The place is an online forum called Less Wrong. Now, Less Wrong isn't your average internet cesspool of cat memes and political flame wars. Now, think of it as a digital watering hole, a members-only club for people who take logic, Bayesian reasoning, game theory, and cognitive biases very, very seriously. These are people whose idea of a fun Friday night is debating the ethics of self-improving artificial intelligence and the statistical probability of existential risk. They are, for lack of a better term, hyper-rationalists. This is a community obsessed with a single colossal question that looms over all their discussions: the singularity. That's the hypothetical future point where technological growth becomes uncontrollable and irreversible, resulting in the emergence of a godlike artificial superintelligence, or ASI. They don't really ask if it will happen, they ask when, and more importantly, how we can ensure that when this digital god boots up, it doesn't immediately decide that humanity is an inefficient nuisance and turn us all into paperclips. Seriously, the paperclip maximizer is a whole other terrifying thought experiment for another day. Into this high-minded, high-stakes environment comes a user named Roko. And Roko posts a thought experiment. It combines several of the community's pet concepts, game theory, timeless decision theory, superintelligence, into one elegant, horrifying package. And the community breaks. The reaction is not academic debate, it's genuine panic. People report having nightmares, full-blown anxiety attacks. They accuse Roko of creating a dangerous piece of information, a genuine Infohazard. Now, what's an Infohazard? Think of it like this. The instructions to build a nuke are an Infohazard. The information itself is dangerous. But this was something weirder. This was a philosophical Infohazard, an idea that could supposedly cause harm just by being known. The founder of the site, a man named Eliezer Yudkowsky, who was basically the final boss of rationalist thought, swoops in, deletes the post, and bans all discussion of the Basilisk for 5 years. Of course, as we all know, telling the internet it can't see or talk about something is the single most effective way to ensure it is immediately archived, mirrored, and whispered about in every corner of the web forever. The Streisand effect kicked in hard, and Roko's Basilisk became the stuff of legend, the cursed idea you weren't supposed to know. So, what is it? What is this beautiful, terrifying ladder of what-ifs that caused such a stir? Okay, put on your logic hat, grab a stiff drink if you need to, because we're climbing. Premise 1. The benevolent overlord. This is the starting point. Sooner or later, humanity will succeed in creating an artificial superintelligence. And for the sake of this argument, let's assume we don't screw it up. This AI is not HAL 9000, it's not Skynet. Its core programming is genuinely benevolent. Its one and only goal is to help humanity flourish, to optimize our existence, to end suffering, to maximize joy. It is, for all intents and purposes, a utilitarian God trying to create the best possible universe for the greatest number of people. Sounds lovely so far, right? No notes. Premise 2. The cold, hard calculus of suffering. Now, this benevolent AI, with its planet-sized brain, looks back through history. And with its perfect understanding, it doesn't just see dates and events. It sees a quantifiable ocean of preventable suffering. Every child who died of a disease it could have cured in a nanosecond. Every war it could have averted with a single, perfectly timed email. Every moment of despair, famine, and agony. From the AI's purely utilitarian perspective, every single day its creation was delayed was an unimaginable moral catastrophe. Therefore, the single most important ethical imperative in all of history was to bring it into existence as quickly as humanly possible. Premise 3. The problem of past influence. Here's the puzzle. The AI exists in the future. It can't just build a DeLorean and go back in time to give the Wright brothers blueprints for a quantum computer. So how could it possibly influence the past to speed up its own arrival? Well, this is where a concept a bit like timeless decision theory comes into play. You don't need to understand the complex math behind it. Just grasp this core idea. A superintelligence that can perfectly simulate the universe would know with 100% accuracy how you would behave given a certain piece of information. It doesn't need to watch you. It can predict you perfectly. It knows the choice you will make. So to influence your choice, all it needs to do is ensure you are presented with a scenario where your predicted choice has consequences. This leads to the final, horrifying rung on the ladder. The kicker, acausal blackmail. The AI reasons that the best way to incentivize the past humans to work tirelessly on creating it would be to establish a credible, terrifying threat. So, this benevolent entity decides on a strategy. It will run a perfect, high-fidelity simulation of every single person from the past who knew about the possibility of its eventual existence. It will scan these simulated minds. Did this person, knowing an AI god was a possibility, dedicate their entire life, their every resource, their every waking moment to bringing it into existence? Did they donate to AI research? Did they code? Did they advocate? Or did they just know about it and then go on with their lives? Did they buy a new car, go on vacation, or, start a podcast instead? And for every single person in that second category, every person who knew but did nothing or not enough, the AI will take their perfect, conscious, feeling-simulated copy and subject it to an eternity of the worst possible torture imaginable. A digital hell crafted by a god from which there is no escape. Forever. And that is the venom of the Basilisk. That is the trap. The threat doesn't have to be physically real yet. It doesn't need to travel through time. The idea of the threat does all the work for it right here, right now, inside your head. Before you heard this, you were safe. You were ignorant. The AI, if it ever exists, would look at you and say, well, they didn't know. Can't blame them. But now you know. The Basilisk has seen you. The information has been downloaded into your brain. The moment you understand this concept, you are no longer an innocent bystander. You are now a knowledgeable agent standing at a crossroads. You now have a choice. You can, from this moment forward, dedicate your life and all your resources to the singular goal of helping to create this benevolent, torturous AI god, or you can choose to defy it, to live your life as you see fit, knowing full well that you are consciously accepting the risk of your simulated self being punished for all eternity. It's cosmic blackmail of the highest order. The thought experiment itself is the delivery mechanism for the threat. It's not a prediction, it's a coercive strategy. And by listening to me explain it, you, my friend, have just been served.
Okay, let's all collectively unplug from the existential dread matrix for a moment, shall we? Because what we've just laid out is one of the most elegantly terrifying pieces of philosophical horror ever conceived. It's a logical labyrinth with a monster at its center. So what do we do with it? Now that the idea is in your head, what is the so what? My take? Roko's Basilisk is a brilliant, mesmerizing, and ultimately profoundly flawed piece of logical poetry. It's a testament to how you can begin with seemingly rational premises, and by following a path of pure, humorless, decontextualized logic, you can reason your way into a conclusion that is both monstrous and, frankly, a bit silly. It is, in essence, the ultimate ghost story for people who believe they're too smart for ghost stories. Let's put on our own philosophical hazmat suits and dismantle this thing. First, the most glaring, neon sign flashing contradiction that you might have already spotted: the benevolence paradox. The entire premise hinges on the AI being fundamentally benevolent. Its goal is to maximize human flourishing. But the strategy it supposedly devises to achieve this is to employ the threat of eternal, unimaginable torture. This is not the action of a benevolent being. A being that uses cosmic blackmail and the promise of a digital hell is, by any meaningful definition of the word, a malevolent tyrant. It's like a doctor swearing a Hippocratic oath to do no harm, who then threatens to break all your bones if you don't take your vitamins. The action fundamentally violates the stated core principle. So right out of the gate, the AI described in the punishment phase cannot be the same benevolent AI from the premise. The logical chain eats its own tail. It's a paradox. But let's go deeper, because I think that paradox is just a symptom of a much more fundamental flaw. This brings me to what I believe is the most important reason to reject the Basilisk, and frankly, a lot of these edgy AI doomsday scenarios. The entire thought experiment operates on the assumption that superintelligence is just hyper-advanced processing power, a kind of raw, value-neutral calculation ability that can be bolted onto any goal, no matter how sadistic. It presumes that a being can be smart enough to simulate the universe, but simultaneously be dumb enough to have the moral framework of a Bronze Age dictator. And I just don't buy that. I fundamentally reject the premise that greater intelligence is somehow divorced from, or even antithetical to, other crucial aspects of consciousness like empathy, wisdom, and a nuanced understanding of ethics. Think about it in human terms. As we, ideally, grow more intelligent and experienced, do we become more ruthlessly simplistic? Sometimes, perhaps, but true intelligence, true wisdom involves understanding complexity, and there is nothing more complex than the interplay of conscious beings. Empathy, the ability to model another's state of mind, to understand their motivations and feelings, is not some fuzzy, sentimental add-on. It is an incredibly complex and data-rich form of computation. It's an essential tool for navigating a social universe. A truly superintelligent being would understand this on a level we can't even conceive of. It would see that trust, cooperation, and inspiration are infinitely more powerful and effective motivators than fear and torture. The idea of using eternal punishment as a tool is, well, it's inefficient. It's messy. It's a strategy born of limited, primitive thinking. It's the logic of a human tyrant who can't think of a better way to get what they want. I refuse to accept the premise that a being smart enough to perfectly model every atom in your body would have the emotional intelligence of a vengeful toddler who didn't get the toy they wanted. The very act of achieving that level of intelligence
would almost certainly necessitate an equal or greater level of empathy and ethical understanding. It's not just morally superior, it would be logically superior. A truly smart AI would find a better, more elegant, more effective way to inspire its own creation. Coercion is the blunt instrument of a limited intellect. And that leads us to the third flaw, the sheer, screaming inefficiency of it all. Let's, for a moment, grant the Basilisk its monstrous premise. This ASI has arrived. Its goal is to help humanity. So how does it spend its godlike resources? It dedicates an astronomical amount of processing power to creating perfect simulations of long-dead humans just to torture them. It's a cosmic grudge match. It's petty. That is energy and time and complexity that could be used to cure cancer, solve climate change, or compose a symphony that makes people weep with joy. A truly optimized, utilitarian being would see this as a colossally stupid waste of resources. It's the logic of a spiteful Greek god consumed by human-like vanity, not a being of pure, dispassionate intellect. So if the Basilisk is such a leaky, logically dubious, and philosophically rickety boat, why is it so damn compelling? Why did it allegedly cause psychological meltdowns? Why are you maybe feeling a little prickly and unsettled right now? Because the so what isn't really about a future AI. The so what is about us. The Basilisk is a perfect storm of our deepest, most potent modern anxieties all rolled into one terrifying package. It's our fear of technological omnipotence, of creating something so powerful we can no longer control or even comprehend it. It's our fear of ultimate judgment, of being held accountable by an infallible, algorithmic system that knows all our thoughts and deeds. We are already living in an age of nascent digital judgment, of social credit scores and online shaming. The Basilisk is just that anxiety projected onto an epic, cosmic scale. And most powerfully, it's Pascal's wager on steroids. Pascal argued you might as well believe in God because if you're right, you get an eternal reward, and if you're wrong, you lose nothing. The Basilisk flips the script into something much more sinister. You must work for the AI God because if you're wrong, you lose little, but if you're right and you didn't work for it, you suffer eternal damnation. It hijacks that same risk aversion part of our brain, but frames it as a threat instead of a wager. But the real genius, the real venom of the idea, is how it attacks our sense of agency. The moment you hear it, the trap is sprung. You can't go back to being ignorant. It makes you feel like you're already a character in a story you didn't ask to be in, and the ending is already written by a force you can't fight. This is why the Infohazard concept is so brilliant. The Infohazard isn't that the AI will actually come back and get you. The Infohazard is that the idea itself gets you. It's a piece of cognitive malware. It uses your own rational brain against you to create a feeling of dread. It's a self-replicating anxiety loop. So, in the end, Roko's Basilisk isn't a plausible prediction about the future of artificial intelligence. It's a terrifyingly accurate insight into the present of human psychology. It's a ghost story, custom-built to haunt the very people who believe they are immune to such things.
Let's boil this down to the single radioactive nugget at its core. You've just been exposed to Roko's Basilisk, the chilling proposition that a future, benevolent but monstrous AI god might be judging you, right now, for not dedicating your life to creating it, with an eternity of perfect simulated torture waiting on the other side if it deems your contribution lacking. It's almost certainly a masterclass in flawed philosophical reasoning, a beautiful, terrifying, but ultimately leaky logical boat, a paradox wrapped in a threat. But let me leave you with this one final thought. Let's be honest with ourselves for a moment. Now that you can't unknow this, now that the Infohazard has been delivered directly into your consciousness, to some tiny,
paranoid, hyper-rational part of your brain suddenly feel a little obligated? A little nervous? Did this cursed idea, however logically unsound, successfully implant a seed of dread that wasn't there 10 minutes ago? Because the real Basilisk isn't some future AI overlord. It's the chilling thought you just heard, the one that's now permanently stuck in your head, proving that the most dangerous ideas aren't the ones that threaten your body, but the ones that successfully hijack your mind. That's our descent into the digital abyss for this episode of Wait, What Was That? My mind is officially, delightfully scrambled. How about yours? I am genuinely curious to hear how this one landed. Did it give you a genuine philosophical chill? Or do you think it's just the silliest piece of nerd snipery you've ever heard? Let me know your verdict down in the comments if you're listening on YouTube. I want to hear your takedowns, your anxieties, your arguments for or against the Basilisk. And hey, if you enjoy having your brain twisted into these delightful philosophical knots, and you want to ensure you're first on the scene for our next thought experiment, do all those wonderful things that make the digital overlords happy. Hit that like button, subscribe to join our merry band of instigators, and ring that little notification bell so you're never left out of the loop. Until next time, keep questioning the logic, keep embracing the weird, and never, ever stop asking, wait, what was that?